Good evening. I'd like to call the meeting to order. We can all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance. Item 2, approval of the minutes of the June 7th, 2022 meeting. Any comments?
Motion to approve as presented.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Item 3, communications for discussion, possible action, Plan Commissioner Tim Frank's resignation. I think everyone's known about that now, but not. Tim has resigned. Item 4, unfinished business, none. Item 5A, Dan Studer, W289N106 Elmhurst Road, rate consideration and possible recommendation to Waukesha County on the approval of a lot not abutting a public road for property located at W289N106 Elmhurst Road under Waukesha County's shoreland and floodland zoning. Tim?
All right. As you know, last month we discussed the rezoning of this particular property and the rezoning from to incorporate the shoreline zoning from the county. At this point in time now, they're requesting, the county's requesting a recommendation from the Plan Commission regarding what they're calling a flag lot or a lot not abutting a public road. The lot actually does abut the east end of Sylvan Trail. However, they consider that still a so-called flag lot, the way it is. I have up there the property, so the flag would be the section to the east and then to the south, and then it's the rest of the portion that's to the south that they will be discussing a land split after this particular item is discussed. The county regulations do require a minimum of 3 acres and an average width of 200 feet. I make note of the word average on there. Our code is a little different in that we do allow lots that do not abut a public road if they have access by permanent easement of 33 feet if it's less than 6 acres, or 66 feet if it's over 6 acres. And just to be clear, per the zoning, if this lot is created to be 6 acres, it's really in a 5-acre density zoning, so it can't be split anymore after this. So the only access this flag portion would be for is one lot on that. So I'm making a recommendation that that the Plan Commission provide a positive recommendation to the county for the creation of a flag lot, and recognizing that the access strip of land is currently in place, and that the town is not creating the pole portion of the flag lot via land division. We don't want to set a precedent that we're creating this. It's already in place. We're just recognizing that. I did talk to the county and try to get their input as to what they think about this, and they really don't have a problem with allowing this lot to be created as such.
Any questions or comments, discussion?
Would,
Could you speak up a little bit?
Sure. Absolutely. Mics are on, hopefully.
Without the county, putting the county part aside, would this be considered a legal non-conforming lot because of the flagged approach?
Would we consider it? If it wasn't under county zoning?
Yep.
Well, I would consider it because I'm considering the frontage at the end of Sylvan Court, or Sylvan Trail. That would be the front, that would be the only portion that abuts a public road. And so that would be considered, in my mind, where the 50-foot setback would be measured from. The county doesn't quite look at it at the same way. They look at the larger portion of the property and not necessarily the narrow portion.
But if we, the town, are looking at it with the flagged lot, would that be considered legal non-conforming? According to our ordinances, or no?
It would be correct, you're correct, but it's not in our jurisdiction to do that. But I understand your question. If it was in our jurisdiction, then it would be considered a non-conforming lot,
And so.
based on frontage.
Yeah. So if we look at that with the recommendation, did we consider anything from section 17 of our ordinances with regards to the division of non-conforming lots?
I'm sorry, ask the question again, please.
In making the recommendation, did we look at, or did you look at section 17 of the ordinances about the division of non-conforming lots?
I did
guess, how
not,
does
no.
that play in? Because I think that would be a factor into any of our proposals or recommendations back to the county.
I did not look at it as a non-conforming lot, no.
Sure. State your name.
I'm John Spears, and this is the owner, Dan Studer. And basically, what we're looking for tonight is that this strip of land has been in place for 31 years. This has always been a flag lot. Has not been any different. So we're requesting your approval tonight as your planner's recommendation.
Okay,
So
we understand. Thank you.
Any questions for us while we're up?
Okay, we'll talk louder. The mics are all on. I don't know, Dan.
Is it test, can you hear this?
Well, we do have some technology problems
Test,
today.
test?
We'll all try to talk louder. How's that? Okay, so yeah, I think, Nicole, you make a good point, which is if this were strictly under the town's jurisdiction, the current lot, because it's a dual flag lot, would be non-conforming, and would we, under the town ordinance, allow it to be further split?
I mean, I could be wrong. I don't know all of our ordinances inside and forwards, backwards. But if I'm looking at section 17 in specific, there are clauses or specific statements in there to the effect that we would not split it if it was a legal non-conforming. And more so, I understand that it's been in this way for 30 some odd years, but section 17 came into play, I think, and somebody can correct me on this, in 2013, which means even if we were to, in essence, grandfather it in, if Mr. Studer purchased the property in 2016, those ordinances would have already been in place. So if the county's looking for a recommendation, it'd be my opinion that the recommendation that, at least that I would present, is one that follows with what our ordinances have.
Recognizing our town ordinance no longer apply.
Understand, right? So part of that is, right, if the county's looking for a recommendation from us as the town, right, because the county ultimately is going to make that decision as to whether or not the land is split, our ordinances indicate that at least if we still had jurisdiction over it, we wouldn't be splitting it. I could be wrong in the misinterpretation of the section, but I think in looking at that, that's kind of how that plays out. And I'm certainly open, to discussion on whether or not if any of that is factual.
I'd have to do research on that before I can answer
Yeah.
the question, to be
Yeah.
honest with you.
And I guess that's the fundamental question is, do we apply the town ordinances in making the recommendation to the county, recognizing the county ordinances are different? It's a fair question. I mean, that's, I think, what we voted on last time, and we voted 3-2 against recommending it to the county, although I don't know how the town board
Town board was unanimous,
recommending it.
recommending it to the county.
So they rejected the planning commission's recommendation.
Yes.
Okay.
And presumably, the same type of recommendation is, I mean, we make a recommendation that still has to be approved by the town board.
Right.
So I don't.
Not in this case.
Not in this case?
This is directly to the
Goes
county.
It's
Okay.
not a zoning, it's a different issue. It's like when we do retaining walls close to the lot line where the county's code just says that they want the plan commission's approval. Last time we were dealing with zoning, which
requires the
had to
town
go
board.
through the town board as the process.
It's a really good point, Commissioner Dickerson, but I think, quite honestly, the debate at the last meeting was the fact that there's a navigable waterway that was determined by the DNR on this property. So therefore, given the precedence of everything that's happened in the laws, the county zoning takes place.
Mhm.
So while, like, it wouldn't even ever been a discussion if the town zoning was ever, if the county didn't take over the zoning. If it was under the town zoning, it would have been, we wouldn't even be discussing this issue. As the engineer's report states, the strip of land's been existing there for 31 some years. We're not creating a new strip. I would make a recommendation that we allow the lot not abutting a public road for the property located at W289 and 106 Elmhurst Road under the Waukesha County Shoreline and Floodland zoning, making specific note that it's an existing strip of land that we are not creating by making this recommendation.
Okay.
If that was a motion, I would second that.
Okay. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
I,
Opposed?
Nay.
I'll vote aye, just to get it off our agenda, because I want to address 5B more importantly. 5B, Dan Studer, W289 N106 Elmhurst Roadway, consideration and possible action on the approval of a CSM to create two lots at W289 N106 Elmhurst Road.
All right. The request, you can see the way they want to split the land in front of you there. Lot 2 that would be created was a little over 6 acres. The Lot 1 would be 5.3 acres, so it meets the density requirements of the county. We're taking this under consideration based on our past, or just our, what we just did in the first one there. The surveyor has addressed all my technical comments on there. There's a couple of considerations that I'd like the Plan Commission to make. One is, there's really two. I mentioned one in my report, and that's whether or not we want to require the Sylvan Trail extension to the east to be reserved or dedicated to the town. We can make that request. The second one is, in the past, there has been an access easement shown on old CSMs. The one that is referred to on this certified survey map refers to that CSM. However, in looking at that CSM, it appeared that that owner, who's to the north of Sylvan Trail, granted an easement, or shows an easement on their certified survey map, but they didn't own the land that they were actually granting that easement to, as far as I can tell. And I talked to the county, and they're in agreement with that. They could not figure that out either. So to that end, in regards to the access, and we know that there's some concerns about getting access to the property to the north and to the south at the end of Sylvan Trail that it crosses Mr. Studer's property. The county and the town, and I'm, as a staff, we're recommending that we create, at the very least, an access easement that's 25 feet from the end of Sylvan Trail to the east, and have that the full 66-foot width. That would cover getting access into those two driveways to the north and south. In regards to the road going to the east, I am someone that likes to have connectivity amongst roads. However, in this case, we have wetland that's on the Studer property. We have wetlands that are on the Shanestadt Sisters property to the east. There's consideration of the residents that currently live on the cul-de-sac, whether or not that should go through at some time. They probably are not expecting that to go through. There are other roads that actually abut up against the Shanestadt Sister. One is part of the Lloyd Williams development to the north, and then also the Retreat development to the south. That has a road that actually abuts right up against the east lot line of the Shanestadt Sisters. They also have an access down to Highway 18, although it's very narrow, but there's a strip of land that goes all the way down to 18. And obviously, they have a strip of, or they have access to Cherry Lane. So they would have 4 potential access points. I did talk to Sister Joan, if you know Sister Joan from the Shanestadt. She's been there for many, many years, along with some other nuns that stopped in. And I just asked them, you know, is there any, are you thinking about selling land or developing or anything? And she kind of laughed and said, there's no way that we're going to develop that land. I mean, I'll take it for what it's worth and say I'm sure they don't want to develop that land. So I'm anticipating that there would be no access needed, at least another additional access to the east. So I'm not recommending that we reserve that area for a road. If we did, if we did get dedication, we'd have to maintain it. We'd have to figure out who would build that road at some point in time, and that could cost town some money. So I think all those things kind of add up to say I'm not recommending that we request a reservation or a dedication of that strip of land there. I am recommending that recommending approval of the certified survey map. I did get an updated one dated July 6th with my comments addressed. So I'm recommending approval subject to any outstanding technical comments being addressed by the county. And City of Waukesha gets a review under extraterritorial plat jurisdiction, as well as requiring them to put in and indicate a 25-foot by 66-foot access easement and allow the neighbors to the north and south to have access to their driveways.
Okay. On the road question, and I don't disagree with your recommendation, and but if in theory the property to the east developed, they could always buy this strip of land and make it a road if they wanted to.
You mean the Shanestadt?
Yeah.
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
Sure.
So it doesn't preclude a road going in, it just means we don't have to, the town wouldn't have the right to put the road in.
Correct. Correct, yeah. Obviously, it's a little easier if the road is reserved.
Sure.
Or dedicated, then we can accept the dedication, and then the road is available for the next developer.
Yeah.
I think the engineer,
If we knew that
Barbeau,
this was
has-
going to move, if this was in a series, and we've had subdivisions where, you have different phases that go on, we would require that
Absolutely
to
require
the
it, yeah.
end. In this case, with wetland right there,
It
highly
just doesn't make
doubtful.
sense. I think
Right.
you've indicated there's 4 other access points that make a little bit more sense.
Right.
So
I agree.
we've set those up to do that, exactly what I said. Take them right to the lot line, so if they ever develop, they're right there to take it and go.
And did I hear in your recommendation for what you were saying that we've cleared up the issue of the neighbors' driveways on either side?
We're going to use the CSM to do that.
Okay.
The reservation of the access easement, or the granting of the access easement in the CSM will solve that issue that was uncertain last month.
I was
Which I've-
hoping that's,
I view that as a very good development from this CSM.
I would agree.
I would like a motion that the Plan Commission recommend to the town board approval of the CSM dated July 6, 2022, subject to the satisfaction of all previous requirements associated with the rezoning of the lands. We approve the lot not abutting the public road, and addressing any and all technical corrections by the town, county, and city of Waukesha, and also require that 25 by 60-foot access easement so that the two property owners at the end of Sylvan Trail cul-de-sac can access their driveways.
I'll second.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
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 Item 5C, Brian and Catherine Jackal, 3615 Hawthorne Hill Drive, Waukesha, Ray, consideration and possible action on a certified survey map to combine parcels located at the northeast corner of Hillcrest Drive and Orchard Avenue, tax key numbers DELT 0764026, DELT 0764027, and DELT 0764-028.
All right, the lot one that you see on the screen right now is made up of 3 small .154 acre lots that were platted back in the 1920s, I think it was, or something like that. So it's been, that land's been vacant forever, sounds like. And so someone has purchased the land, and now they're combining it to eventually develop that with a single-family home on it. So in order to do that and get rid of the lot lines that are created by those other lots, they have prepared a certified survey map that combines all the lots into one lot there. They did provide some dedication of roadway along Hillcrest, and that meets our code requirement for a 30-foot right-of-way along Hillcrest Drive that was created through Ordinance 249 in 1990, where we took over the mill tax roads and created right-of-ways that way. Obviously, that's not our normal 66-foot right-of-way, but that 30-foot was what's identified in the ordinance for that. The surveyor has addressed all my technical comments. So at this point in time, I'm recommending approval of the certified survey map. It's dated 7/5 of '22, subject to the applicant addressing all the technical comments from other reviewing agencies prior to the town executing the document.
Pretty easy one, combining lots.
Cleaning it up, making it, it's pretty straightforward. I will make a motion that we recommend to the town board approval of the CSM dated July 5th, 2022, subject to the addressing of all comments for the reviewing agencies, specifically the Village of Heartland and the Waukesha County.
I'll second.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay. Item 5D, Matt Newman, Newman Companies, Ray, presentation of conceptual development plan on land known as the Thomas Properties, generally located north of Gulf Road and south of Lake Country Trail between Glen Cove Road and Elmhurst Road. Tax key numbers DELT 0811 999, DELT 0809 996, and DELT 0809 995. Before Mr. Newman or his representatives come up, just a reminder of the process. I think most of you have been through this now with us, I think 4 times, but tonight's just a discussion item. They're going to make a presentation. We're going to provide some reactions, comments, thoughts. If the project moves forward, there will be a draft of an ordinance prepared, and then we will hold a public hearing at which you'll all be entitled to speak on the then current draft of the proposed ordinance. If that ordinance passes Plan Commission, then it goes to the town board where there'll be another discussion and vote. So this is just the very beginning of that process. So just a reminder that that's where we're at. Okay, thank you, gentlemen. The floor is yours.
All right,
Floor
good
is yours.
evening. I guess it's us, huh?
You're on.
Good evening. My name is Matt Newman from Newman Developments. I don't know if we can get the presentation up there, Tim. But in the meantime, I'll give a brief background of our company, and then Brian will go through some of the specifics. Nice to meet everyone here. I was hoping you were all here for some of the earlier agenda items, but I guess that's not the case. So our company is a residential land development company. We've been in business since 2000. We've developed a little over 5,000, probably close to 6,000 home sites, all southeastern, south central Wisconsin. We've worked in probably 50 different communities. I personally live right in the community here. I live in Heartland. Brian actually lives in Delafield. We won't give you our address yet, but maybe at some point. So this happens to be one that's very close to home for us, and we're very excited about the opportunity. Our company really looks for parcels where not only are they attractive from a community standpoint, school standpoint, like the things that people look for when they want to buy a home is how are the taxes, how are the schools, how's the location for access to jobs and things like that. This site checks every one of those boxes. The town of Delafield's a very desirable place to live, has low taxes, has great schools, and is a very good location. So naturally, it's something that's very appealing to us. On top of that, being close to home, it's easy for us to keep a close eye on and obviously care a lot about it because we also drive by it on a consistent basis. One of the things our company has done and something that really draws us to this site is preservation of green space. We've preserved about 1 acre of land for every acre we've developed. And so on this particular site, there's obviously a lot of environmental corridors, there's wetlands areas. That provides us opportunities to do some neat things in those green space areas, which we'll be presenting here tonight as part of our concept plans. Brian will go through those in more detail. We do also have a few home building partners. One of those is Halen Homes. You'll see the bubbles up there. But Halen Homes, Harbor Homes, Tim O'Brien Homes, they all specialize in slightly different product types. Halen Homes specializes in attached products, so think townhomes, ranch condominiums, kind of empty nester type product is what they specialize in. Harbor Homes is a home building company that we've started basically to build homes more efficiently and more affordably, and basically we build them nearly all on spec. And what that allows us to do, we've built, again, a few thousand homes, and so we have a pretty good idea what people like. It just takes a lot of the cost out of the equation if you're able to do it in a way without customers changing things along the way. And so Harbor Homes we built to just be a much more simple process for home buyers, but at the end of the day, the type of product they build is actually the same product as, in terms of how we build them, as our higher end home building company, which is Tim O'Brien Homes, and they build semi-custom homes where people can pick from many more floor plans, they can modify the floor plans, modify their selections. So we kind of have a suite of building companies that come in and support the developments once we get the entitlement process done. So that's kind of our story. We're very excited about this project. Again, we've been following this. I get the local newspapers, like I'm sure all of you do. We have watched this site for 4 years, probably. Obviously have known about it for a lot longer than that. We've made proposals along the way. We're excited to be to this point now where we can actually come forward. We do have a contract on the property, so we are able to actually advance conversations in the event that this is something that the Plan Commission and Board would like to see advanced. We are able to advance the project and actually see it through to completion, so we're excited about that. And then the other thing is we think we've really read and heard from the family, from the town, from staff meetings, as well as from folks that we know that live in the area that have been much more involved with this. We think we've got a pretty good pulse, although I'm sure we're going to learn more tonight. Otherwise, all of you wouldn't be here. And we're looking forward to learning more about what the view of a future development might be here and what the objections might be. But having said that, I think at this point our understanding of it, at least, is that the density conversation and the types of uses have been somewhat defined, and not totally defined, but at least defined enough that it gives us an idea that we think we're on the right path here. The proposals we're going to make are all residential. We don't have any mixed-use type products in here. We do have different types of residential, but we think that that's something that we heard loud and clear through all the publicity on this site for a long time. So we're excited about the two concept plans. With that, I'll turn it over to Brian and let him present the two plans, and then we'll be here to answer any questions. Thanks.
Thanks, Matt. I'm Brian Lindgren with Newman Developments. Like Matt mentioned, I'm a Delafield local as well, so I'm familiar with the property. I'm familiar with the fact that over the course of the last several years, a lot of conversations have been had on it. This is our attempt to create a neighborhood that we can be proud of and that we think the surrounding area will be proud of. Like Matt mentioned, our expertise is in residential development. That's what we do for a living. When we had an opportunity to come up with some concepts for the Thomas Farm, what came to mind to us was a development that we did just down the road, 2 exits down the road in Summit. So Lake Country Village is the name. It's really been a success from all aspects, from the residents that live there, from the municipality that governs it, from the visitors that come to the neighborhood. It's laid out with an ample amount of green space, walking paths, recreational amenities for people that live in the neighborhood and next to the neighborhood to get to. It incorporates multiple different types of housing. This is what we really feel is one of the keys to success of a residential neighborhood. We don't want to start a neighborhood and just have it creep and crawl and not be a success. So some of the things that you're going to see that we're going to present here are incorporating some of those themes that we've found successful there and in other neighborhoods in Waukesha County and some of the surrounding counties that we do work in. So we'll kind of go through some of those and ask the board for any feedback that they're able to provide, because some direction is, I think, something that we'd like to hear, something I'm sure everybody here would like to hear. So we can kind of decide, what's the future of the Thomas Farm. So you go to the next one, Dan. So like we mentioned, we all know where the property is. It's been discussed for years and years. And just some of the things that we look at when we're designing a neighborhood are what is the environment that it lives in. So in this case, we know it's south of Pewaukee Lake. There's a beautiful amenity for not just the residents here, but all of Waukesha County. To the east, there's some residential as well as an existing golf course. Sorry to any of the neighbors if I put any golf balls in your backyards. The west is primarily residential as well. I've got friends in those neighborhoods, neighbors just like yourselves. To the south is I-94. We can't ignore that. That's a highly, highly traffic road. You live in the area, we can hear it from anywhere you go. You can see it from anywhere we go. And that's part of, I know, the conversations that have been had in the past when the county was involved, when there was listening sessions and plans put together, dividing the property up into different zones. We tried to respect those zones in our plans as well, where some of the density should be clustered closer to the highway. So, one of the common themes, we put together two concepts. The big one is open space preservation. We've heard that from all of the entities that have given feedback thus far. Open space preservation is something that's important to us inherently, but in this case, where it's in a more rural environment with existing neighbors, open space comes in the form of buffers, landscaped berms, things like that. Walking trails is a great opportunity, being adjacent to the Lake Country Trail, to link together some of these neighborhoods in a more efficient manner. As well as amenities that we've done in the past for some of our residents. Pickleball courts, pools, bocce ball, things like that, basketball hoops, things that people like to get outdoors and participate in. So you'll see this theme in both of our concepts. So before diving into the concepts initially, so we've put together two concepts. They are both fully residential. There's some differences primarily on the western section. So that's the section that was identified in previous designs as something that could support more density, largely because it's at the shadow of I-94. It's a louder portion. It's quite visible to the highway. So this is where, on this first concept, you'll see some duplex product. So we've had a lot of success in other neighborhoods with two types of duplex product. One of those is what we call a townhomes style duplex. It's a two-story home attached to one other two-story home. So that's the yellow on the south. Just north of that would be what we call our reserve product. This is a empty nester, a single level ranch style duplex. These are a product that we found very successful for lifestyle decisions that people make. They want less maintenance, they want less square footage, but also it's an opportunity to come in at a price point that in our area is about as well as we can do. The townhomes would likely be in the mid to upper 400s, and the reserve ranch style duplexes would start in the low 5s. From there, again, linked through trails and a network of the roads, we've got what we call our villa homes. This is a theme that we picked up and ran with in Lake Country Village It is a style of home that's single-family ownership. It's a entry-level or a smaller home, depending on what stage of the lifestyle you're in. If you're looking for your first home or you're looking to downsize, it's a smaller lot, so it's less maintenance. It's a neighborhood-centric, front door-centric style of development that's been very successful. You can drive down the street and really get a feel for a comfortable, welcoming neighborhood. So as we go north, we know that that's where we've got to look at our lessening the density. We've got a lot of really great open spaces that are going to be preserved in there. There's natural woodlands, wetlands, things like that. Those are all going to remain. Just to the north along Elmhurst, you'll see the next section of residential housing we call our residences. Those homes are a step up. They're slightly larger. Those homes would, in our design here, would be on 15,000 square foot lots, about a third of an acre, a little more than a third of an acre. This is a common theme that we're seeing across the area. Affordability is a problem. Availability of housing is a problem. So we've got to do what we can to try to, as be responsible builders and developers, solve both. So in this area, the villas would come in starting probably in the mid fives to upper fives, very much in line with some of the existing homes, and then moving up in the residences would be starting in the 600s. The small area to the northwest is really just a termination of a cul-de-sac. It's a road that was probably intended to end that way at some point, and that's what we're honoring here. It's a larger home. It's 20,000 plus square feet per lot. These are our estates. These are estate-style homes, and those homes would start in the $750,000 range. So we can go to the concept 2. The difference in these two concepts, as I mentioned before, is in the southwestern section. This is an area that we're offering a trade-off, basically. So there is a strong demand for rent housing. Not everybody wants to own their home. People enjoy the lock the door and leave kind of availability of an apartment. These are nice rental units. These are rental homes no larger than 8 to a building that would rent anywhere from the upper 1800-ish to the 2000s, more than likely. They're clustered in with the benefit being that more green space can be preserved, more buffer can be provided to the neighboring communities, as well as traffic can be directed almost entirely to Gulf Road. So these are some of the benefits that we're trying to offer here with this option, and we think it'd be a great fit for the community. Go ahead. Some of the examples, again, just because we'd like to show the product that we offer. So the estates being the larger size lots, this is in line with the homes that already come off of the existing road. Larger 20,000 square foot homes, side entry garages, estate appeal. The residences, 15,000 square foot lots, homes, again, starting in the 600s, probably mid 6s. These are large homes, typically a move-up type buyer. So in the villas, as I mentioned, streetscape is an important thing to think about. The villas are front-centric. The top picture is actually from Lake Country Village. This is as it matures, you'll see the trees grow up. Some of this is something that wasn't present to preserve in Lake Country Village. But as you can drive down the street, you can see there's a sidewalk. There's an opportunity for people to meet their neighbors in the front yard and live in their backyard. So, as I mentioned, what would a rental product look like here? Delafield's a great community. I live here, like I said. Would like to see something that's nice, that matches the caliber of the community. And the apartments that you see here are all local to this area. They're in Heartland. They're recently built in Heartland. They're recently built in Oconomowoc. They're recently built in Wales. These are high-quality rental developments. The towns, we're building right now in Sussex. We're building in Cedarburg. We'd like to bring them here. They have been received very well by customers. This is a 2-story attached to another two-story in a duplex style, as you see here. It's a great entry level to homeownership. We know that that entry price point, especially in our area, keeps climbing and climbing and climbing. This is an opportunity for people to become homeowners. It's an opportunity for them to downsize their maintenance, but have a nice home. These homes are 1,800 to 2,000 plus square feet. And then the reserve. Reserve, again, appeals to downsizers as well as people who just, you know, they want to give up the maintenance aspect of it. This would be established as a condominium. The home sizes and styles are in the 1,500 square feet and up. And again, great layouts in a great setting here. These are on the north side. A lot of opportunities to have the woods and the wildlife in your backyard, so. That's it. I'm looking for any feedback that you may have.
How do we want to start? Right to left? Nicole?
Going end to end here again, huh?
Next on the far right.
I think the concept that we're seeing here tonight is much different than what we've seen in some of the others. There's certainly been that reduction, which has been heard loud and clear, I think, from town residents. If I'm looking at this and living not too far from this particular development, when I look at some of these roads, especially as we get into the concept planning, while in your first concept design, it looks like it'd be a little bit harder, to have speeders go through, right? You're dealing with Elmhurst and you're dealing with Gulf Road. On concept 2 of the plan here, you've got 2 points of entry from Gulf Road versus having that connecting over to Glen Cove. And if I'm looking at this just from being not too far from here, I wonder how many people are going to be cutting through, potentially, through that little curve, which could make that a little less appealing for either the owners of that property or for the neighborhood at large. So I see where there's been cautious bends in a lot of these developments, which again would keep down on some of the potential speeders that are coming through. We do have a lot, especially off of Gulf and Elmhurst. I'm just wondering if that's going to eventually become some type of a pain point should that concept go through.
So are you saying you like the traffic pattern in concept 2 better because it doesn't connect the?
No,
there's-
in concept 2 here, right, you've got the 2 points off of the apartments. I can see that with just being a bend like that, of people zipping through.
Well, but it doesn't get them anywhere from, other than Gulf Road to Gulf Road. I mean, the concept 1, you could literally go from Glen Cove to Oakton without ever getting onto Gulf Road. I mean,
Yeah.
that's a cut through to me.
Yep, so you've got an exit point off of Glen Cove, right? You've got Gulf Road, and then you have an exit onto Glen Cove too, but you've got some curves in the middle. Being right off of one of those frontage roads, it would not surprise me to see somebody trying to zip through there, whether it be, pick someone who, may want to accelerate their vehicles, or dodge being caught on Gulf Road or Elmhurst. It's a thought that crosses my mind, at least when I see the curve there.
When we lay these out with our engineer, we're always conscious because these are communities that are built for families of all ages, and a lot of times there's kids. So making sure there's curvature in the roads helps slow people down, just because naturally it's harder to do that when you see curves coming up. But the nice thing about this site, or one of the nice things about this site, is we have immense access opportunities. We think the county would allow up to 3 access points along Gulf Road if we were to need them. But that's the type of feedback that's really helpful to understand here tonight. Like concept 1 has 2 access points on Gulf Road, and then 1 out in the east and 1 out in the west. That flows really well, but if there's other traffic patterns that you'd like to see or you'd prefer, it's pretty easy because of how many, frontage roads we have on east, west, and south. We can modify access points very easily. We like to control them in nice, like, boulevard-type entries, because you can put more safety measures and call it more aesthetic opportunities when you have fewer entry points, but you really do a nice, like a boulevard entry just looks a lot nicer, and I think it's also safer. So that's why we like fewer entrances, but really doing a better job with them and building them out a little wider. But having said that, this site has ample opportunity for access on 5 different spots, really, maybe even more.
And I think for, the access points, right, I definitely understand what you're saying with regards to that. Something, though, that would prohibit, because I think that's part of the concern here, right, is with any development, you're introducing more vehicles. And when you have pockets like this, especially out in a more rural area, people have a tendency to start zipping around. The more curves that you can add in not only offers more of an appeal, but it, to your point that you've stated, offers a little bit of a safety. So when I look at those, I just wonder, if that's not creating sort of a pocket of places for people to zip without giving them any type of deterrent in a bend, and that bend in the roads could be similar to what you have in some of the other developments around there, something that may kind of cut that down.
Yeah, sure. And the multifamily one too, Brian mentioned this, it's meant to show a different type of use that can preserve a lot more green space. If that were the direction that you gave us, you wanted to move down that path but see a different road layout or whatever, there's another level of detail that we're gonna need to get to in this, because this road pattern, to be honest, it's, in the one with the apartments, I mean, I don't personally love it. I'm not, like, we're not, it's one of those things, we'd have to take that to, someone, there's multiple, for rent experts in this market that would have different ideas, and we would actually interview them, have architects lay it out and come up with something that, it wouldn't be this specific plan. The concept is that a sort of use that you'd like to see in that area? And then if so, we can come in with specific, architectural plans for that. So we could absolutely adapt that. That would be, my point was just, we have a ton of access opportunities here, which is actually nice, because that way if there's objections to, let's say Glen Cove, if Glen Cove is, because of the number of homes that are already using that access point, if that's something that we need to stay away from, or all the residents want to stay away from it, or whatever the case might be, we could always produce emergency access out there for safety purposes, but not traffic out there. So there's a lot of things we can do. That's the nice thing about this site, is we have plenty of access opportunities.
Well, thank you.
So I'll actually take the somewhat opposite approach to that. Of the things that I liked in concept 2, in that portion of the concept, the connectivity to Gulf Road was one of the few things that I did like, with having traffic, the ingress and egress, come through that portion of the development onto Gulf Road and not hooking up with Glen Cove. So I saw that as a positive to concept 2. And sorry, I don't know what order we're going in here, if we're just discussing topics at this point, our thoughts.
I yield the floor to Commissioner Deitcher.
Okay, sorry. But the thing that I did not care for, or I guess these are, thank you first of all, for putting together these, what I think are well thought out and planned concepts for us to look at and discuss. I'm very much more partial to more of the single family concept, and comparing, concept 2 to concept number 1. That being said, I did like, and these are all subject to the traffic studies that would be included in the ordinance, right? But I did like the thought of the majority of the traffic coming to and from Gulf Road to prevent congestion on Glen Cove.
We, just by example, I know Brian's mentioned Lake Country Village a few times, but that site had way less access opportunities because it went out onto 2 county highways, County Highway P and County Highway B, Valley Road and Sawyer Road. And so if any of you get a chance to go over there and look at that community is probably 80% built out at this point.
At least, yeah.
So it should give you a good feel for lot sizes. We have villas, residences, and estates in that main area. So you get a good feel for lot size and home types and architectural standards. We have multiple builders in there beyond just our building companies. So that's all good, but the other thing is, from an access standpoint, we have a little over 300 home sites, really with 2 access points. They're boulevard entries, they're nice entries, but just by way of comparison, we could easily bring all of the traffic out to Gulf Road. And this is less density than that. Now, I still think we'd want for emergency access and just call it local community flow, like eventually the residents, whatever this ends up looking like, the people that end up living on the Thomas farm will have friends that are in the neighborhoods of many of the people that are here, and having access to get to those neighborhoods without going out onto Gulf Road, I do think is beneficial. So whether it's walking trails or whether it's, lower usage roads, I think access out to the east and west is helpful, but I do think we could drive the majority of the traffic out to Gulf Road. And I think a traffic study would pretty easily say that that traffic is able to be handled with two access points if we wanted to. So, just by way of reference.
So I got to ask the elephant in the room. How much can you dial the density back? Because I know at our March meeting, the Thomas family attorney asked for a number. We gave him a number. You're kind of close, but you didn't come in at the number. So I just want to hear kind of your logic and what your thoughts process was.
I'm glad you brought that up, because I meant to bring that up in the introduction. We were not in attendance in any of those prior meetings. but
Correct.
Obviously have had plenty of conversations and also read the news articles that came out after and such. So we've got a pretty good idea. What our understanding was of that, and again, it's the elephant in the room, so I'll just go right at it and talk about it. I think that what we got back was that up to 250 units could be, again, could be the number. I'm not saying it was the number. There was no agreement. It was like that was kind of a density that seemed more tolerable for this site. It's, again, it's a 150-acre site, but there's about 90 acres, I think, of open space. So you're still putting that number of homes on a smaller space because of what it is. I'm sorry, maybe it's 70 acres of open space. What I wanted to get at, though, is that 250 units, at least what came back to us, was that 250 units was exclusive of the 17 acres on the corner. So the plan that was discussed at that time, or the concept that was presented, was 250 units, but it excluded the 17-acre, call it farmstead, on the southeast corner of the site. And so when we decided to pursue this, and when we were working with a family on how to do this, there was a question of whether we were gonna buy the whole farm or just the 250 unit portion and exclude the 17 acres and let that get figured out later. Our opinion was that it would make a lot more sense to do this as one big master plan and know what the entire farm is gonna be, and not talk just about, 135 acres and then wait and see what happens with the other 17. And so our thought was, if 250 units was what could be acceptable on most of the farm other than 17 acres, if we incorporate the other 17 acres, we effectively added about 1 unit an acre. I think we added about 17 units. It's not exactly 17, but that was basically the idea. Is we picked up that other 17 acres and rolled that into this concept plan, so now it's a master plan for the entire site. And we just felt like that would lead to a better outcome in the long run than having someone else come in a year, 2, 3 years from now and make a proposal on that 17 acres and be debating what that use is gonna be. Because I think that 17 acres is being talked about for something a bit higher density than what we're talking about here. So that was our thought process, though. I mean, that's why we ended up at 270, I think, on one of these. And the multifamily one has just a few more units than that.
Could you kind of educate us on the cost of development and why it doesn't make sense to put a Woodridge Estates on this property, and kind of the pros and cons of why this plan is being presented versus an Arbors or a Dover Bay or something a little bit?
Yeah, we knew this would come up, and it's not surprising. I think it's a fair question. Yeah, at the end of the day, you guys, it's
I think
the
this is an
interstate.
opportunity is what I answer the folks in the audience here that have the signs of .7 and .33, and why that's just not feasible anymore. That's, thank you. Glad you
All right,
asked.
so since you asked the question, I didn't know what all the signs even meant,
Yeah.
so I'm just like, but I was addressing it this way. I get it. Now I see all the .7, the 106.
Yep.
So this site is different than Woodridge, and this site is different than the Arbors, and this site is different than, take all the properties on the, call it the north side of the lake that go around on KE, which we are familiar with. We went through the same conversation 7 years ago with Woodridge. They're different because of I-94. It's really that simple. In our mind, as a developer and as someone who ultimately has to understand what we think the market will accept here, I truly don't believe that building, if we were to build the same home sites that were in Woodridge or some of the other communities that are immediately surrounding this, those home sites would have to sell for probably $250,000, $250,000, because the cost of infrastructure is so much higher. It costs us about $1,500 a road foot to build, 1 linear foot of road, this much, is about $1,500 on a fully improved basis. These are roads that are gonna have sewer in them. And then there's other common amenities and landscaping and other stuff you have to do. So the reason I bring that up is I don't believe personally, and we certainly would not be the company to attempt this, because I don't believe it'll work. If you develop 1 acre home sites or 3/4 acre home sites, or say you do all half acre home sites here, and they have to sell for $200,000 or more, you end up with homes that are $800,000 to $1.3 million, or whatever that range is. And I just personally, there are parts of the site that absolutely could and probably will have some higher end homes like that. I think the northwest section where there's that 8-lot cul-de-sac, those will be very nice higher end homes. And I think even the northeast side of this site, that's further from the interstate and will have the buffer of other homes south of them, between them and the interstate. I think those homes will easily be $600,000 to $900,000 homes. There might even be some of those that are over $1 million. But as you get closer to the interstate, especially the southwest part of the site, we drove that site, we sat there and looked at it, we had our windows down, this is not a secret to anybody that lives in that area. That corner is particularly exposed to the highway, and part of that is because of the hill that is immediately west of there on I-94. There's no way to completely shield the noise. I don't think there's really a way to completely shield the visibility of it. So the homes that are along the highway are going to hear it and they are going to see it, and the highway is going to see them. And so our opinion is and I think that's why there's been a multi-year debate on what to do with the site, is because it is so visible to the interstate and would support a lot of other uses other than residential. But if the focus is residential, which we're happy it is, because that's what brings us here, and if that's what the neighborhood wants is residential, which I think at least we heard from a distance loud and clear that that's what the desire is, I think it has to be something that is a little bit more dense than the surrounding areas. It's a lot more dense. I'm not gonna say a little bit, it's a lot more dense. And it hits price points in that $500,000, $600,000 price point, because I just don't believe that $800,000 homes backed up right to the interstate will work. So it was a little bit of a long-winded answer, but
I appreciate
it's different than the other things that are there. And I think that southwest corner, you guys all drive that area, that parcel is very exposed to the interstate.
I don't disagree with you. I live on the other side of the lake, and at the middle of the night, my windows are open, I hear the freeway, so I totally get it. I just want to play devil's advocate on concept 2, the multifamily. I know that there's not an appetite for the multifamily, but I think, tonight I'm wearing my plan commission hat, and when I look at the 2 concept plans, while I like the idea of the duplexes, I do feel that as a plan commission and as a planning entity, the multifamily, just looking at the number of rooftops, provides you with the ability to get that more open space, and I think that's what the town of Delafield has always been about, is getting that open space. So I think that's something that a plan commission needs to look at and consider, as far as that, just what it's going to look like from the freeway, and what it's going to look like, versus the duplex idea. And when that 250 number was thrown out, it was for the whole parcel. It wasn't excluding that 17 acres on the corner. So just because that was my 250 number. So just.
That's good to know. That was not what we thought we heard, but understood. If that's. And
I just want to, you're very correct as far as your assessment of what's gone on in the debate for the last 4 years. I just want to remind everybody that, when we started this thing 4 years ago, we were talking light industrial and commercial, and senior uses and different uses, and this is like the 4th time we've gone through this, and I've heard loud and clear, we want residential, we want residential, we want residential, and I think we're a lot closer than we were 4 years ago. I mean, obviously we still need to have the density discussion, but the density of the neighborhood is 1.2 when you include the high ridge condos and include what the neighborhood looks like. And everybody says match the neighborhood. The rest of the neighborhood is low density residential, 20,000 to 1.4 acre lots. So You know, I mean, that's how I came up with that, you know, that 250 number. Is, you know, if it's all 20,000 square foot lots, you're at, you know, 240 something. So just want to throw that out there.
And I think that number would assume that you could use all the acreage, I think.
Correct.
And the challenge we have as developers is that we only get to use well, first of all, I don't think anyone would want us to clear cut what's out there.
No, we do
I'm
not.
not willing to, by the way, but I also assume none of you would want us to. So when you talk about 250 units, it's then how much usable space is there, and you gotta take out stormwater ponds, you gotta take out roads, and then walking trails, and then obviously preserving the environmental features that are there and making sure the wildlife still has a place to be, because it's everywhere out there. So at the end of the day, I think that density of 250, again, our understanding of it was that was excluding the 17 acres, so that's why we came in the way we did. If what we need in terms of feedback is, does this all need to be for sale product, or could we allow some for rent product out there? Because if we could allow for rent product, then at least it allows us to consider what that would look like on the site and preserve. Okay, I get it. Okay, I wasn't sure, was there a yes somewhere in there? I thought I heard it. Somebody said yes. Seriously though, what it does allow us to do from a site planning perspective is preserve a lot more space. We could put things in like a 5-acre dog park that you couldn't put in if you have homes that are spread out more. And those sorts of amenities could be utilized by the neighborhood. Now, again, these are trade-offs. Like, we're here presenting options because we want to get feedback. If for rent housing is completely off the books, which by the way, it's happening everywhere around the country, and it's not just apartments per se. There are single-family home rentals. There are a lot of people, including a lot of younger millennials and such, that don't want to make a commitment to a mortgage payment. It's just the way it is. So, anyway, bottom line is we wanted to present options. If it needs to be for sale, then that guidance helps us. If the absolute cap is 250 units, we can't go over it. Does that break the deal? I don't know, but I can tell you if the feedback is some of the signs I saw at 106 units or 180 units or 200 units, we have no, like.
You're out.
Yeah, we can't do anything. Like, we're stuck. Anyway, so that's where we're at. I think this is much closer, to your point, than what's been talked about for 4 years. We are very confident in this product working. It worked extremely well right down the road. It brings in a vibrant community when you have different price points. Building the same exact thing over and over, especially if it's the exact same as everything around there, is not what creates a healthy real estate market. And a healthy
I'm just
community,
concerned
frankly.
that, you know, I mean, how many more $1 million homes can the town support, you know? I mean, it's concerning. I mean, I appreciate the diversity of home sites, and, you know, these are price points at, you know, $500,000 homes, and, you know, you're gonna have market rate rents at $1,800, $2,000. I mean, these aren't, you know, we're not putting shacks up, you know? I mean, these aren't
And
gonna
I
be.
think that's probably understated, to be honest with you. I think that if we have not done a market study on rental product here because we want to get the feedback first. If the feedback is you're willing to consider it, we would have a market study done. I think what the market study would tell us from the people we've talked to that know that market well is it'd be a lot of 2-bedroom and 3-bedroom units, because it would be the mom or the dad, you know, that is living alone, that might have their kids with them part-time, or whatever the case might be, and they need an extra bedroom or two. I don't think this is the type of apartment product that you would see in like a downtown area where you've got studios and 1-bedrooms. So my guess is the rental rates are, I don't want to say start at 2,000, but I think that they're probably a bit higher, and I think the architectural amenities we put on this would drive the cost up a bit too. But again, we're not here to, like, all of you are our neighbors, we're not here to pick fights, so like.
No, I
if-
mean,
If that's not the choice of the neighbors in the town, then we're gonna go a different route, and that's
Oh,
why
I
we
don't,
have different
I
presentations.
don't want to pick fights, but, you know, in my mind, I'm sick of talking about this property. I mean, honestly, I'm sick of talking about this property. I mean, I open up the newspaper, you see Uvalde, you see, you know, what happened in Highland Park. Like, I mean, hashtag first world problems. Like, let's figure out a way to come to consensus here and, you know, figure out a path forward. I mean, a lot of the emails I received over the last several weeks have been, what is the problem we're trying to solve? What is the problem we're trying to solve? Well, I'm going to take off my plan commission hat and put on my town board supervisor hat. I don't know if, you know, you've all felt it at the gas pumps or the grocery store or, you know, everything else. The price of everything is going out of control. I mean, this inflation is insane. And, you know, as a town board, and, you know, there's this thing called state levy limits. And the only way that we're going to be able to increase our money into the town coffers is, there's two ways. It's increase net new construction or pass a referendum. And we tried to pass a referendum for roads and police service, because right now we only have 2 days of coverage of police service, and I would like to see that as 5 days a week police service, but that's gonna cost money. And, you know, the only, you know, being a conservative, I think that we need to grow, and we need to be able to grow in a way that is responsible and does meet the, you know, the town code. And instead of trying to pass a referendum. And I think this is, we're getting, there's only one piece of property that's sewered in the town left to be developed. And unfortunately, it's this piece of property. So that's, I mean, that's the problem I, as a town board member, am trying to solve. I'm trying to figure out how we can grow the tax base so that we don't have to go to referendum to continue operating the town. I mean, I'm not raising alarm flags or anything right now that the town finances are in dire straits, but, you know, you start looking down the road, 5, 10 years, you know, we could have to make some really, really tough decisions here, and, you know, your street might not get plowed, you know.
You can add schools to the mix too.
Well, the schools, I mean, Kettle Moraine, I mean, you're talking $1 million plus property, that's $10 million a year to, you know, the Kettle Moraine School District, so.
Yeah, the school districts in this area, Arrowhead, we had this up in Mequon a few years ago too, a lot of conversation around this. Communities that have only higher end price points, because of oftentimes driven by zoning, like in Mequon, they had a 1 acre minimum lot size or whatever for years and years and years.
Well, I saw they just changed their 5 acre to 1 acre, and that caused, you know, everybody to show up.
And there's
too.
another area that was a little bit less than that, and what happened was their school enrollment was shrinking. And they couldn't stop it, and that creates other issues, property valuation issues, issues with facilities that are built too large for, you know, what's needed, and then unfortunately you have to pay for that facility anyway. So I think the Kettle Moraine School District also we've looked for land to build in the Kettle Moraine School District for a while, and it's hard to find. So I think this would be very healthy from an economic standpoint for that school district as well, to have new housing that ranges from, you know, a townhome at $475 up to new homes that are $800. It just doesn't exist in that area right now at all. So our opinion is this is what the market needs, this is what the market would want. I understand that the desire in probably every development we've ever developed, the desire number one is to not develop the farm next door at all, because that means no traffic and you keep all the wildlife. And then desire number two, if that's not actually an option, desire number two is just less homes and more expensive homes, because that hopefully means that our values as neighbors go up because there's higher end homes built next to us. And I don't want to say that that argument's invalid. I'm just going to tell you, we've gone through this many, many times, and having housing diversity in a community is what leads to the healthiest upward mobility in a community, and it leads to healthiest housing markets that someday, whenever you guys decide you want to sell your homes or move, you've got housing stock to pick from, so you don't have to move a long ways away. Or if you have kids that you want to stay in the area, or kids that are moving back to the area, they actually have a housing option that works, and they don't have to live in Ixonia or Hartford. I'm really being serious. Like, this is, we have these debates all the time, and especially when you're in a very nice area like you all live in, like we are standing right now in Delafield. If you don't allow housing options, eventually you're gonna end up moving somewhere else, and eventually your kids aren't gonna be able to live here. That's what's gonna happen. It's just the nature of what happens if you don't have housing diversity. So that's what we're trying to create here. We think it's a very unique property that provides the opportunity with access, visibility, all those things. And that's why we think it's a good fit for the community.
Well, and to your point, you know, option one, if it just stays farmland, you know, the property owner has the right to sell their property. And I'm getting really sick of the emails vilifying the family in this, because they do have a right to sell their property. And if the property is not sold and continues to be farmland, the drainage issues and some of the other issues that currently exist with the property aren't gonna be fixed. That's one of the benefits of this property being developed is you're gonna fix the stormwater issues, you're gonna protect the lake because you're gonna, you're not gonna have the runoff into the lake anymore. So, I mean, I think there's a lot of good things to look at this, and, I just hope as a community that we can, move past this thing and figure out a way to compromise. It's clear that, there are people that don't want to compromise on this thing, and I respect that, but I think, we need to all kind of take a step back and look at this thing and try to figure out a way to get a path forward. It's clear, we don't want, multifamily rental use, things in the town of Delafield, but I think if you're gonna have them in the town of Delafield, right along I-94 is probably the best spot to have them, and I just think, using my planning hat and thinking about the diversity of the housing options in the town, I think we'd be remiss not to look at them and consider it. So I'll yield my time to Commissioner Fitzgerald.
Thanks. Yeah, I don't know that I have much to add. I think everyone's made good points. I too think the multifamily concept too has some real advantages. I think the main one in my mind is no access to Glen Cove Road, and the additional green space. Obviously, if we could make similar changes to concept one, I don't know if that kind of layout would support 2 points on Gulf Road and nothing on Glen Cove. It kind of starts to feel like a really long cul-de-sac, even if it might not be. But I do think whatever can be done to, do as you said, force most of the traffic out to Gulf Road. I think, the concept two approach with the 2 points for the multifamily and what appears to be the main point of egress and ingress for the residential to the east, yes, can traffic go out on Elmhurst? Of course it can, and that's the folks that are probably going to Oakton. But to be honest, I'm a little worried on concept one that people will cut through, because you could literally go from Glen Cove to Oakton without ever going on Gulf Road. And, I mean, Oakton doesn't even connect with Glen Cove Road for a reason. So, I mean, having that kind of cut through is probably not the best. But that's just a traffic issue, and obviously you'll have the traffic studies and the engineers. I do like I think the 3 points on Gulf and nothing on Glen Cove is a positive. I think that's kind of where we're at.
What's the lowest density you could go to and be successful in your eyes?
Are you okay if I answer that?
Sure. Because I think Ed asked it earlier.
Okay. I think the short answer is 250 units is what would be needed to make this site work. I think that, I'm not sure who asked that question, but we've been asked this question many times. We're not in a game of racing to the bottom of density. I don't think it's in the best interest of the community, and I don't think it allows product diversity, and all it does is drive up price points to be less and less attainable. And on this site, I really think this is what should be done. I think there were much higher density conversations that were brought up. I think when you look at a 150 acre parcel, this is so unique to Wisconsin. Any of you that travel to other markets and look, you're probably gonna look at new housing the way we do because we're curious about it. We always like to know what's going on around the country. Like 1.6 units per acre of density is something that's very abnormal, like around the country. That is incredibly low comparatively. And I get it. I'm hearing you loud and clear, but there's a reason why it's very hard to live in this area. And because it's not affordable and people can't have jobs close to where they live because they can't afford to live there. So I wholeheartedly believe this. We need housing diversity. We need housing stock diversity in Waukesha County. Even in the town of Delafield, we need it. I said the same thing in Heartland. I believe the same thing in Oconomowoc, same thing in Summit. I live here, you guys. This is my community too. I don't live right next door. I get it. But this is what makes healthy communities. It's what makes healthy communities nationally. Having all $1 million homes is not what makes a healthy community. So that's my personal belief. It's our company's belief. It's our philosophy. But I mean, is there a number that could be less than 250? I don't know, because we haven't. It would change the layouts. It would change what we're trying to accomplish here. But I would say at the end of the day, our goal is to get to 250 units because that's what we think the site can bear. And I think even that is probably significantly understated for the amount of density a site like this could handle if you
Well, yeah,
wanted
I mean, back in March of '21, we were talking, 404, we started at close to 500. So, I mean, we've given this thing the haircut, so I appreciate that.
I also, that question, by the way, like, again, maybe I've been through enough of these, I shouldn't be quite so candid about it.
We appreciate your candidness.
Maybe I shouldn't, but like, we've done this so many times, you guys. If I were to tell you it was 230, the next meeting, I promise you it's gonna be a debate of 210. And then the next meeting, I promise you it's gonna be a debate of 180. And I just, that's not something we're gonna do. Like, at the end of the day, this site works at 250 units. We can deliver a very nice product and a very nice community at 250 units. If that's not what the town and the residents want, I get it. Then we'll go find somewhere else to do something, I guess. But someone else is gonna come in here and propose something different that's probably gonna still lead you right back in this path. So, I also tell people, sometimes that leads to things you don't want. If you reduce density, sometimes builders will compromise other things you wouldn't want them to compromise because it drives costs down in other ways. And you want an architecturally appealing neighborhood, and density is not something, I believe anyway, that drives the architectural value of a community. So just because you have a bigger lot doesn't mean it's gonna look nicer. You can make really smaller homes look very, very nice. So, anyway, I'll just stop talking about density because I think it's a losing battle, but.
All right, thank you very much. Lost my agenda.
So what,
We can address those at the public hearing.
is that the next step, then would be a public hearing?
Well, no, the next item on the agenda is we're gonna now talk with our staff and give them direction on where to go forward. If we draft a revised ordinance consistent with whatever the direction we gave you and staff tonight, that draft ordinance will then come to this planning commission probably in September for a public hearing.
With the
And-
county,
Pardon?
with the county.
With the county and the town board. So it'd be a full public hearing with the county, the town board, and the planning commission, probably at the September planning commission meeting, which would be the first Tuesday of September.
Okay.
But I would just clarify that the town board has not even seen this or acted on this, that we referred the ordinance back to the plan commission, and we're back at square one. So, talking about, studies or anything, we're at square one here. We don't even have an ordinance. So we gotta get an ordinance passed to have a path forward.
Okay, so at this point, we won't take any additional steps if there's things that are needed. I mean, obviously, we don't want to start paying for traffic studies and water table studies and.
No,
and
not until the ordinance
stormwater-
passes.
Right, like, we would need to know what direction you want us to go with concept one or concept two before we took those steps. We're certainly willing to do those things, but we want pretty clear direction before we start spending all of the resources necessary to do that.
Correct. And the ordinance as drafted currently, and these will remain, will require you to do all of those studies as part of the
The next
process
phase, okay.
of getting your master development plan approved, which would require more details in the concept plan, but would also require the traffic study, the water study, the sewer study, et cetera. But that's what the ordinance will require of you, assuming we're able to pass an ordinance.
Awesome. When there's a public hearing, maybe we turn the air down just a tad. Get
Talk
some
to
water.
Dan.
Get some water. All right, thank you for your time, and thank you all for being here. I'm sure we'll
Thank you.
see you all again soon, so, thank you.
Item 5D, Town of Delafield Plan Commission regarding providing direction to staff regarding modification to the Plan Development District Number 1 zoning ordinance.
Well, I think the direction we provide to the staff is to provide a path to allow either concept one or concept two to move forward.
Agreed, okay. But do we want to put a unit limit? Do we want to put a 250 cap in the ordinance?
I think that's the direction that we should move toward, to get as close to that 250 number as we can, because that is what as closely matches
The neighboring, yeah.
Well, that was the directive originally from the plan commission, so I think it would be pertinent to put a cap on it, so that at least the residents know it's not gonna go over that.
Right, right. And do we, I mean, obviously, we understand the community opposes the multifamily rental units, but I do think there are some advantages to it, so I think you leave it in as an option, and we can take it to public hearing. I mean,
Well, and I think the full plan commission too needs to put their planning. I think it's just good planning I think it's poor planning to just, carte blanche rule out, the multifamily option. I think that's disingenuous.
And I don't think that there's been anything that's been reported, although it may be worth checking in with Wales.
You guys just speak up, please. Cram your face into the microphone.
I don't think that there has been any issues that Wales has brought up with regards to their Lincolnshire apartments on the corner of Highway 18 and 83. But maybe that's worth checking in with them as well to see what their feedback may be.
Somebody just lean on
Gonna
something.
have me lean into the phone just to. Yeah.
Okay.
Get us out of here soon.
So that may be something to ask about with those counterparts as far as what their perceptions or what their feedback has been on those apartments that are there.
Mhm.
Can you just clarify, like, check up on those to see?
I would see what their feedback is.
It's from the town or village staff.
Just feedback on any particular issues or just on generally?
I would ask, I mean, there seems to be a general concern, right, with apartments and whether or not that has damaging effects to the overall community. And I wouldn't suspect at this particular point that the Village of Wales has seen that with those developments. I could be wrong, but if we're doing our research on this, it is a budding community. And while albeit it's not exactly one for one, it is another rental that's in the area.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other direction for staff?
I would say, if my comments seem negative towards concept 2, that was not where I intended them to land. If given the choice between all residential or multifamily, the choice is residential, right? Or single unit dwelling type of properties. Yes, I'm so sorry. I'll speak directly into the microphone. But based on concept 1 and concept 2, there's simply trade-offs. So I agree. I think all things should be considered in the future.
Right. Any questions then?
It sounds like you guys want us to draft the ordinance so that it can go to both plans, so we can look at, but 250 being the cap, but both for multifamily and the duplex, is that correct? And then, remember, this will go to the town board too, so they may have input on it too, if it goes through plan commission, so they might want to sway it one way or the other.
Of course.
So
No, I think the direction is to draft an ordinance to allow the town as much flexibility as possible to pursue either concept plan as presented. I don't think we should take anything off the table at this point. I think there are pros and cons to both concept plans, and I think we need to do our due diligence and truly vet out those pros and cons.
Does the ordinance, how it's currently drafted, push density in one way or another? Because we're simply looking at residential right now. Would it make sense if we're capping a number just to allow them to come back? Because what I heard a lot of discussion about was the southeastern corner of this property, right? I understand we're working with environmental corridors and flow of traffic lines and things, but is there any reason why more concentration as far as the multifamilies or something like that couldn't be considered on that portion of the property at this point? Is the current, because the current ordinance was based on
All kinds of other things.
all kinds of other things, and we were trying to push the density in one way or another. So right now, what we're doing is we're pushing the multifamily closest to the neighborhood. And if we loosen that ordinance on where the density is placed and required, perhaps it's a better solution as far as where the units go.
Well, I think in the old ordinance where we had the zones, the multifamily was literally kind of in the middle of the property. Unfortunately, that's also where a lot of the environmental corridor is.
Right.
So, we can't we can't take that down. So I think, you know, Mr. Newman said, you know, the north, right, southwest corner is the logical place for it. I do think if we could have that moved, and maybe this is another comment for you, if even just using that same format, you moved it, you know, further to the east, further off of Glen Cove Road, I think that would be a positive. But obviously, it's then going to be abutting the other residential neighborhoods, and there needs to be appropriate space between those developments as well, so.
Well, I think that the idea would be if you can move it more to where you got the natural tree line and the natural buffer, and it's not as prominent. I mean, do you want to see it from the freeway, or do you want to, you know, see it shielded? I think,
Yeah.
you know, Mr. Newman made a pretty decent argument that, you know, if you're going to have the rental units, you're going to want to have it in that southwest corner because it's not shielded as well. So I think the ordinance should be drafted in a way that provides flexibility. They're the experts. They're the ones who do this day in and day out. You know, I would, you know, rely on what they have to say, and, you know, they can make the argument to the Plan Commission when it gets to that point.
Sure.
Yeah, I guess just a couple of comments on the code that, just so you know what we are thinking is that, you know, things like office, multifamily, senior housing will not be in the code then, unless we hear differently. It's gonna be really written for some kind of either concept 1, concept 2 type of code, you know. We have 6 zones that we talked about in the past. That'll probably be reduced. They've already kind of created some zones based on their densities and their home styles. And so I think we're gonna match those
So
somewhat.
basically 4 zones, more or
4
less.
zones match, but we're gonna match those.
Yeah.
Now I'm hearing we might talk about maybe moving some of that, so.
I
we
think
might
we're
come up
talking
with
about
a-
moving them de minimis as opposed, because again, the environmental corridor prevents really the movement of anything, I think, very significantly. So,
Yeah, I mean, one of the, I think Casey was kind of tending towards one of my thoughts, which was, you know, we talked about having a buffer between 94 and single-family homes, and that was always in the past office or senior housing or multifamily, you know. And so we don't have that anymore, but is there a way to move some of the duplex type units to the southeast corner, you know, on the lower end of all the single family there, as a buffer to the single family to the north? Once again, I think those are concepts that they can deal with, but if we create these zones, we're gonna tie ourselves into those zones with these concepts. So, unless we just wanna leave the zones out and.
no, I think the
and-
zones make it easy to articulate and understand. I think they've proposed basically 4 zones. I mean, if we think we should move the duplexes from zone 3 to zone 4, I understand some logic in that, but that wasn't their proposal, and they seem to be. And I honestly think the duplex just feels denser, and unless it was a single row of houses across the entirety of I-94 Gulf Road, I don't know that we'd want 2 rows of those sets of houses all the way along that property line.
I'm going more for the flexibility. I hear flexibility, but then I say, we've done things in zones before, so.
No, I
we're trying to figure out-
I think you got to remove the zones. I mean, we've capped the thing at 250, you know, and, you know, allow for the duplexes and/or the multifamily, in addition to the different home styles that they've provided, and they can mix and match the zones where they want it.
Well, but, I mean, I agree with that in terms of the flexibility, but would we really want the multifamily in zone 2? No. I mean, it wouldn't be built there, but
But if we get a master plan on this, wouldn't we have the ability to say yes or no to that?
True. I mean, assuming we get an ordinance and then they come forward to develop it, they'd have to bring forth a master development plan with all of this in excruciatingly greater detail, along with the traffic, water, sewer studies, you know, environmental impact studies, all those things. And then we could provide comments. At that point, if they ended up putting duplexes in Zone 4, what is now Zone 4. So I guess if the consensus of the group is we don't need the zones because we have the ability through the master development plan to work with it, I'm fine with that.
Yeah, I just think that, a reasonable and prudent person would put the density as they provided closest to the freeway, as they.
Of course, and that's what they're going to do.
Right, I mean, so if the density is going to be along I-94, and as you work farther north, the homes are going to get bigger and more, less dense, I think, let's remove the zones, give them the flexibility, and then at the end of the day, we do have the master development agreement, and if, I would direct staff to, when they're having discussions, when they get to that point, to make sure that that's where they go, to keep the density along the freeway to create that buffer, because that's the planning.
And maybe the way to do that is to remove the zone concepts, but then include some, I wouldn't say recitals, but some of the general policy statements of the master development plan is, we're going to, encourage, if not mandate, all of the higher density, units to be, along Gulf Road and the interstate. Again, we're going to, whatever can be done to mitigate traffic flow over to Glen Cove and Elmhurst, I think is a policy that we would want to support, and some of the plans are better at that than others. But then we can enforce it through the master development plan, so we don't have to get into the zone specifics and say, you get 27 units in Zone 3 and you get 37 units in Zone 4.
Just keep an open mind. Once we write it, that's when kind of the details come out, and then once you have to craft it, that's how we'll do it. I just wanted to get some feedback on,
No, that's good,
do we do
'cause-
it like an old PUD where just, kind of one lot concept, just make it all work? Or do we create zones? So I think staff can work with what you've said. Don't be surprised if we have some zones and maybe other zones that have some flexibility in it in that case.
Okay.
That's just some thoughts.
Anything else?
I think that's really all I have for now.
All right.
We'll start writing it and see what comes up on.
I'm sure you won't have any questions. Item 6, discussion, none. Item 7, announcements and planning items. Next meeting, August 2nd, 2022. For the benefit of everyone here, this will not be on the agenda. Item 8, adjournment.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.